and they just had that fear of Virginia Union. And I'm like, hey man, we're gonna play this ball game tonight, and we're gonna whoop some butt. We're gonna keep moving. And I said, this is my home team. I can't stand them because they wouldn't recruit me. So I had a little chip on my shoulder about that.
When people think of HBCU football rivalries that cross state boundaries, they think about Jackson State and Southern, or maybe FAMU and Southern, or maybe Jackson State and Tennessee State. But in the CIAA, the nation's oldest black athletic conference, there's a rivalry that has defined championships for nearly 50 years, yet remains under the radar. It stretches across state lines from Richmond, Virginia to Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Virginia Union and Winston-Salem State University. These are two programs with 12 CIAA championships apiece, dozens of Hall of Fame players, and a sideline lineage of coaching legends. They've played for 75 years, but the series really heated up when the Panthers passed on an undersized quarterback from Richmond, and the Rams built their dynasty around him. This is the story of WSSU versus VUU. Before 1976, Winston-Salem State simply couldn't beat VUU. From 1950 through 1975, the Rams went 0 wins, 8 losses, and 1 tie in the series. Albert Roseborough was a star lineman for Winston-Salem in the 1960s before becoming a coach and recruiter after graduation.
Because it has always been a defensive battle with Virginia Union and Winston-Salem State, mainly because of the two coaches up there. Coach Tom, Tricky Tom, and the other one was Willard Bailey. And that was during Bill Hayes' era with Coach Bailey.
WSSU suffered a 35-0 loss in Richmond in 1975, but help was on the way. It started when Big House Gaines hired Wake Forest assistant Bill Hayes as head coach, and he hit the Richmond area looking for talent. And he found it, but it came with a stowaway.
Richmond, Virginia is my home. I actually used to, in fact, we played at high school football on Virginia Union's home field at Hovey Field.
And Kermit was just one of the exceptional players. But they had one other player, Stephen, that Coach Hayes was very high on in the place of Blount. And his name was Albert Grinnell. Albert Grinnell was, 6'7", maybe 270, 280.
And Albert was like 6'7", 6'8", about 290 pounds. And, everybody wanted Grinnell. Everybody wanted Tree. We called him Tree. Everybody wanted him. And we were really, really good friends, and we wanted to go to school together. And, I had coaches that come in, and they just said, hey, you're too short to play quarterback for me. And I'm like, okay, well, let me get up. I need to be sitting here. And every time I go to leave, I couldn't close the door because Grinnell was behind me. He's like, hey, I ain't going to talk to you like that. And so Bill Hayes came in and took us down on a visit. And he brought us back. We had a good visit. And he brought us back. And he dropped me off at home, and he went to Grinnell's house. And he wanted to sign Grinnell. And Grinnell said, no, I'm not signing because you didn't sign Blount. And that's how that got going. And then he decided to come back in and said, well, if I want the big guy, I got to take this little guy. So he ended up taking me along with Grinnell. And, history just, kind of played itself in.
And Kermit turned out to be exactly what Coach Hayes was looking for. A leader, one that could play, one that had heart, and one that knew the game of football. And once we broke the barrier there, me as a recruiter, once the barrier was broken in getting Kermit, it just started snowballing. We got AJ, Arrington Jones, then we picked up Antonio Howard, who all of these guys, Flip, all of these guys, Steve, They were exceptional ball players coming out of Richmond. So we sort of dethroned the recruiting trail up there that Virginia Union may have thought that they had a pipeline. Coach Hayes just dethroned that.
Because once I got to camp at Winston, it was like we got 13, 14 quarterbacks here. I never get a chance to play. Then I just kind of walked everybody down, and by the first ball game, I was starting quarterback as a freshman, and it just took care of itself after that.
He made Coach Hayes' job very easy. He was more of a second but first coach.
The 1976 matchup was the night that it all changed, but it started with a change of attitude.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You know, it's funny because at that time, you got to think back in the 70s, in the late 60s into the 70s, it was either Virginia Union, it was Hampton, or North Carolina Central. Those were the three alphas in the conference at that time, and Virginia Union was on top for sure. And nobody could beat Union in the conference. And so right before we played the game as a freshman, you're playing your what, third? Yeah, I'm playing my third game as a freshman, as a true freshman, and the first play of the game, I walked in the huddle, and guys' eyes were really big. I'm like, hey, what's going on with you guys? And they just had that fear of Virginia Union. And I'm like, hey man, we're gonna play this ball game tonight, and we're gonna whoop some butt, we're gonna keep moving. And I said, this is my home team. I can't stand them because they wouldn't recruit me. So I had a little chip on my shoulder about that. And so we ended up making plays that night. And we won that ball game 14-7. And they had some awesome talent on that team at Virginia Union. Malcolm Barnwell was a receiver that was just unbelievable, and Judge Thomas was a running back who was he was an alpha back, and Plummer Bullock, and they had some kids on that team that could play. And most of those guys I played against in high school, either at Maggie Walker or John Marshall or John F. Kennedy or wherever. You name it, Howling Springs. I played against all those guys in high school, so I was familiar with all of them, and they talked trash all game long, about, why we down here playing y'all can't beat us, and so we beat them 14-7 at Bowman Gray, and that was a pivotal point in our program, because now the guys that I'm playing with feeling like, we got confidence, we can play with anybody, and so it worked out well.
That win was Hayes' first as a head coach, Blount's first as a starter, and WSSU's first ever against Virginia Union. And the floodgates opened up. By 1977 and 1978, the Rams were undefeated CIAA champions.
I tell you what, Willard Bailey, dear friend now, I love Willard Bailey. He's an unbelievable guy, unbelievable man. I couldn't understand why he wouldn't recruit us out of Richmond. Why I couldn't understand why would he let this talent get out of Richmond, and every time I had a chance to play Union, it was lights out for me. It was that chip stayed on my shoulder the whole time, even as a player. If I got close to him, I remember playing them, and I know it's a little bit off the subject, but I remember playing Virginia Union my sophomore year in Richmond. And I ran a play to that sideline, and I ended up stepping out of bounds. And I stepped out of bounds, and I was right beside him. And I think we were up 31-19 at the time. And I looked at him, and I said, "Coach, you wish you would have recruited me now." And he cussed me out. "Get off my sideline, boy!" But that was my way of having a little fun with him.
Yeah, it was all fun and games for the Rams in the late 70s. But as my daddy used to say, ain't no fun when the rabbit got the gun. And while the Rams were rolling, Virginia Union was putting together an all-star cast of its own in preparation to take back the CIAA crown. In 1979, Blount could only watch from the sidelines in Richmond as his Rams fell to Virginia Union, ending the 3-game streak. It was the start of a fantastic period for Virginia Union and Willard Bailey, and a frustrating one for Bill Hayes as Kermit Blount went on to start his coaching career. The 1980s would see both programs continue to assert their dominance in the CIAA, but first it was Virginia Union's turn. From 1979 to 1983, Virginia Union won 4 of the 5 CIAA championships. The 4th would come in Winston-Salem in WSSU's backyard as it defeated WSSU in a game known as the Fumble Bowl. Bailey would head to Norfolk State University, but in 1986, new head coach Joe Taylor also beat WSSU in the championship game under Bill Hayes. Hayes would leave for North Carolina A&T in 1987 after winning the CIAA championship, and he was replaced by Pete Richardson.
The thing that made this a great continuous rivalry, Coach Pete Richardson was probably one of the most, I don't want to use the term intelligent, but he was one of the most smartest coaches on both sides of the ball. And he was Coach Hayes' right-hand man. See, all these guys played professional ball, including Richardson. So when it came out for Coach Richardson to take over, it wasn't a big deal because the winning tradition was going to keep going.
Richardson and Taylor would meet twice in 1990. VUU shocked the Rams at homecoming, but WSSU returned the favor the very next week when it won the CIAA title on historic Hovey Field in Richmond, Virginia. But again, the winds of change would blow on this coaching matchup. Joe Taylor would leave Virginia Union for rival Hampton following the 1991 season. The 1991 season would be the last championship for Pete Richardson at WSSU, as he would leave for Southern University the following year. The Ram who had ignited this rivalry, Kermit Blount, was now an assistant coach for Willie Jeffries at South Carolina State University. But with the opening came the call to come back home, and Blount answered.
Willie Jeffries called me in the office before we went recruiting, and he called me in one evening. We were in the office late that night. He called me and he says, "KB, come in here a minute." And I walked in his office and he says, "You know it's your time, right?" And I looked at him. I said, "Coach, you trying to fire me or something?" He said, "No, boy." He said, "Your time is coming." And I'm like, "Okay." I said, "What time is that, Coach?" He says, "You're going to be a head coach soon." So he knew something that I didn't know. And I go recruiting, and then I get these phone calls. All of a sudden, Pete Richardson left. He's going to Southern.
It took him a while to get the program back to championship level contention, but what didn't take any time to revive was his hatred for Virginia Union University, who was now being coached by none other than Willard Bailey himself.
But yeah, when it came to Virginia Union as a coach, even as a player or coach, it was just a different chip on my shoulder that week. And the kids knew it. They knew that, we were going to be business and we were going to take care of business that week, because either I was going back to Richmond to play or either they were coming in to play. And, we were going to take care of that business because I just didn't have it for Virginia Union.
John Dell has been the Winston-Salem Journal's beat writer for Winston-Salem State since the mid-1990s. And even he remembers how tense not just Blount, but the entire program got when it came time for Virginia Union week.
Yeah, he never liked to talk about Virginia Union. It was like, his mom still lived in Richmond. He talked about that all the time. He went back to Richmond a lot when he was coach here, and it sort of scared him a little bit. But he was up for the challenge.
After having to reset the program, Blount finally broke through with his first CIAA title as a coach in 1999. And there was one thing that made it just a little bit sweeter.
It was a really, really good feeling to win the first one in 99, because it was overall. I mean, the team that had the best record won it. And the team that was right behind us was who? Virginia Union. So that made it even better, to go back to Richmond and flash the 99 hat around the Union guys. It was just something, it was something special.
The next year it got even sweeter. The CIAA went back to the championship game format, and the Rams got a chance to match up for the second time that season against Virginia Union University.
I looked at the coaches and I said, the one thing that we won't do is we will not lose to Virginia Union here today. I said, because if we lose to Virginia Union here today, you guys lose because you won't have a job. But I was only messing. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't put that kind of pressure. I think I was just kind of just in the moment talking. And I looked at Coach Faison, who was my true dearest friend, who was my D coordinator at the time. And I said, Faze, if you don't stop these people today, I said, bro, I'm going to pack you up and I'm going to send you back to Petersburg today. And I looked at Woodbury and I said, look, I don't care what you do. You make sure these guys are focused up on offense. You make sure that we're taking this thing to where we got to go. And we ended up getting that win at the end. It was a really, really good ball game. They had a running back. What was his name? Braxton. Unbelievable kid, man. Unbelievable player. I tell you what, man. He was Huntley, but he was a shorter Huntley. Unbelievable back. But we ended up winning that ball game in Durham on North Carolina Central's campus.
Right.
Which was a twofold for us because we beat Virginia Union on Central's campus. And those were two teams that we couldn't stand. So it worked out well.
The Rams took charge, won the championship behind the quarterback Torrey Woodbury and a fearsome defense. And Blount had won not one, not two, not three, but 9 games in a row against Virginia Union. But maybe not all, but most winning streaks come to an end eventually. The 2001 regular season matchup saw VUU record a 24-22 win at Bowman Gray Stadium. And as fate would have it, the two teams would meet again in Winston with a title on the line.
In 2001, they played Virginia Union in the championship game right here at this stadium. Josh McGee got hurt. It was his freshman year, got hurt in the first half, and they couldn't recover, or they would have won 3 in a row. So that comes to mind. I mean, that was a good game, and so Virginia Union and Winston-Salem State, it gets everybody's attention in the league, and I think that as it should be, it should be a priority because those are the 2 best teams in the league.
Yes, that was in Bowman Gray. We played the championship game in Bowman Gray. Josh McGee was a true freshman. He was a true freshman starter for us at quarterback. First half, Josh McGee, right before the half, got hurt, and he couldn't play the second half. And we had to play another kid. And I think that kind of took away from our flow on offense. Defensively, I thought we played well enough to win it, but we just could not amass the offense to get it right. I think changing quarterbacks, I think it hurt us a little bit. But yeah, I remember that ball game. We had an opportunity. We missed some things in the second half with our backup quarterback. We missed some receivers that were open. We missed a couple of checks, which gave them the upper hand. And but that was a tough loss for us. That was a really tough loss. Yeah. But we still had an opportunity to win the game, though. We still had an opportunity.
Virginia Union appeared to have broken the Kermit Blount curse as it won in 2002 and in 2003. In 2004, VUU hired Arrington Jones, a Richmond native and a former WSSU running back who once shared the backfield with Blount. Blount won both of those games, including a 31-0 win in 2005, which was set to be WSSU's last CIAA matchup for its move to Division I. Well, the MEAC Division I move didn't work. Yeah. And Blount was let go at the end of the 2009 season. He was replaced by Connell Maynor, who as a freshman led WSSU to the 1987 CIAA title. Maynor brought the Rams back to dominance, CIAA championships, a 2012 national title game appearance, and 4 straight wins over Union, all blowouts. Now, Maynor left in 2013, replaced by Keenis Boulware, who won back-to-back CIAA titles in 2015 and 2016. But Virginia Union spoiled the party with the 37-14 win in 2016, but it was a non-conference game. Since 2018, Virginia Union alum Dr. Alvin Parker has taken control of the rivalry, and WSSU has struggled under Robert Massey, who's still looking for his first win against Virginia Union. Heading into Saturday's game, Virginia Union holds a 1-game lead in the series. Ever since Kermit Blount broke through in 1976, the Rams and the Panthers have been the standard bearers, 20 championships between them, legendary coaches Hayes, Bailey, Richardson, Blount, Maynor, Parker. and battles that still echo across the
I
league.
think they're probably now the most two consistent programs in the league. You talk about, Bowie State had their run, Virginia State sort of had a run, Shaw had a run for a little bit, but I think consistency-wise, historically, they're the two best teams in the league, the two best programs, and they're going head-to-head on Saturday at 1 o'clock out here. It's almost like finally Winston-Salem State gets a slight advantage because it seems to be in Richmond because they don't play every year. For some reason, the way the schedules work, but I think it's going to be one of those knockdown, drag-out fights that the CIAA has been known for with Virginia Union and Winston-Salem State for years and years.